Oh, hello, and I'm here with another video. This one's a bit different to everything else uploaded this week. I'm going to be talking about some of the hobby products that I use. So, mostly, I use the Citadel stuff, the Games Workshop stuff, and there's a couple of pretty good reasons for that. So, first of all, by and large, the stuff they make is decent. I'm not going to say it's the best paint in the world, and I'm not. Neither am I going to stand here and say that it's awful and that you shouldn't use it and all the rest. Okay, it's fine. I'd say it's to the good end of fine, but living as I do in the UK, it is ridiculously easy for me to pick up and top up Citadel paint. So if I run out of a particular colour that I'm using, it is less than a mile from my flat to the nearest Games Workshop store to buy a pot of paint. And so if I was using a brand where I had to, when I ran out of something, I had to order it in, pay shipping, which would probably almost double the cost of the pot of paint, it would be much, much less convenient. And I also find it's really useful when it comes to using painting guides. I am by and large somebody that likes to try and paint things as they look on either the box art or on some other, it'll be some other official variant colour scheme. Not always. My Tau Kill team, which you've seen, is a really old video on the channel. I'm probably going to do an updated video about them at some point. They're using a colour scheme of my own imagination, and if I ever start talking about Age of Sigmar, which is not currently within the scope of the channel, but my Age of Sigmar death stuff, which you can see on my Instagram, if you want to go and have a look at that, the link's in the description. That is a colour scheme that I've come up with. But by and large, when it comes to most of my 40k stuff, anyway, I am someone that likes to follow the kind of instructions and the background, which means that I can follow Games Workshop's tutorials. Duncan Rhodes, who used to work for Games Workshop and has his own sort of painting academy, it's mostly paywalled, but he has some good free videos as well on YouTube. He tends to use mostly Citadel paints in his instructions. And there's another channel I really like, which is a guy here on YouTube called The Painting Coach, and he also uses mostly Citadel paints. So it just helps to have that kind of common lexicon when you follow along with people. But I do appreciate that if you live somewhere else, I'm thinking especially of the US, where actual Games Workshop or Warhammer stores, as far as I can gather, are quite few and far between. You've got far more kind of friendly local gaming stores, so it might be easier for you to pick up something else like Vallejo or what have you. But there are some things where I use different bits and pieces. So in terms of brushes, I'm a big fan of the Artisobus brushes. So this is a company in Stockport, they're based in, which is Greater Manchester in the UK. It's actually really near to where my in-laws live. If you've heard of Element Games, they're based. If you actually look them up on Company's House, they're based in the same place, so it's probably the same guys or some combination of the same guys, and they create a line of paintbrushes, and they are the nicest paintbrushes that I've personally used. Now, I'm not saying that they are the best paintbrushes because I haven't used all the different kinds of paintbrushes that there are, but they are pretty easily available. I don't live in the north of England anymore, but I'm up there a couple of times a year, and I find the brushes really, really good and really easy to use, and I feel like they're a massive improvement over the sort of standard Games Workshop brushes, which I find don't hold a point. For me, it's the longevity thing more than them actually feeling nicer. Brand new paintbrushes from any brand always feel really nice for a bit, but it's how long they keep that kind of new brush feeling. As to the Games Workshop Artificer brushes, I understand they're quite good. I did read somewhere that they are Winsor & Newton brushes with Games Workshop written on the side, but I've never tried them. They're quite expensive for what they are. They're more expensive than the Artisobus brushes, which are themselves not cheap brushes. They're quite expensive brushes. So I've never tried those. I also kind of relish the standard sizes, so you can talk about a size 1, a size 2, a size 3 instead of Games Workshop's sort of, I would say, needless kind of obfuscation of the standard sizes for paintbrushes with their own little names. I mean, I don't know if they do it so that they're not teaching skills that are transferable to other brands. It could be. I couldn't tell you why it is I'm happy to use their paint, and get kind of stuck with their ecosystem when it comes to paint, but it annoys me when it comes to brushes, but it does. I know that might be a bit inconsistent. That said, I do use their new synthetic range, the sort of STC brushes, they're calling them, because they're really quite cheap. Okay, so it's like less than a fiver for a brush. And they seem to be really indestructible. I've actually got super glue on one once, and it sort of washes off, and then it goes back to a tip, and it's fine. And yeah, it's not as nice to use, and I wouldn't use it for fine detail work, but for sort of bashing on base coats on a miniature, the synthetic brushes are really, really good. They're also, they're completely synthetic, so they're vegan, and that matters to some people. It's not something that matters to me, but I've got a friend or my wife has a friend who is interested in that kind of thing. I was able to recommend those, so that's nice if that's something you care about. I understand that most paintbrushes are made out of sable hair, which is a kind of a weaselly looking creature. So maybe that upsets you and you want to use something that doesn't have weasel tail hairs in. I don't know. I don't have the full set of the synthetic brushes. I have a medium base brush and a medium layer brush, and as I say, I mainly use those for laying down base coats and poking other things around and doing that kind of, the donkey work. And then I save the Artisobus brushes for the detail that comes afterwards. Sprays! And again, I mainly use the Games Workshop sprays for all the reasons that I have said before. They, especially when it comes to sprays, buying spray paint over the internet and getting it shipped to you can occasionally be a pain because Royal Mail don't like to carry aerosols, so you usually have to pay even more to get it couriered. However, there are a few other companies that I use, so we've got quite a lot of Army Painter sprays. I don't particularly rate Army Painter sprays. I don't think that their quality is consistent. Some of them are lovely and some of them are really chalky. It just depends on the colour. But the reason that I find a use for them in my sort of hobby arsenal is that they have more colours. There's a much deeper choice of colours. So I'm thinking of things like purple, yellow. They've got a really nice bright green. They've just got a lot of colours that Games Workshop do not do. Now, there's a rumour going around that when GW finally get around to relaunching the Horus Heresy, that they're going to come out with a new set of sprays. So they're going to have, maybe we'll finally get a purple spray. As someone at one point collected a Horus Heresy Emperor's Children army. That would be pretty good. Hopefully we'll get a Sons of Horus green kind of a spray. That's a lovely colour. So maybe Citadel are finally going to come along and cater to the gap that at the moment I think Army Painter are plugging with their range of sprays. The other set of sprays that I rate are Colourforge. So the Colourforge sprays by and large are totally matched to Citadel. And I've never had a problem with them. And it includes some out of production colours as well. So they do a spray that's analogous to the Fang spray, which I did pick up because I want to use it when I finally get around to doing my Death Corps of Krieg kill team. I want to follow the old kind of Forge World era colour scheme for them, where they have the sort of more blue-grey coats as opposed to the kind of more saturated blue that the studios painted the new plastic ones with. Colourforge stuff is just as good and it's cheaper, it's a bigger can, and if it's something that you can pick up from a friendly local gaming store, then absolutely I'd use it in preference to the Games Workshop stuff. Again, for me, I'll pick up a can if I happen to be in a friendly local gaming store and I can buy one without having to pay for shipping. Shipping on aerosols, at least in the UK with the postage laws, is a pain in the backside because you have to pay more for a courier service like UPS, DHL, one of those sorts of things, because the Royal Mail, the ordinary post, won't carry them. I did once have a really bad experience with the Colourforge varnish. I might have been doing something wrong with it. Varnish is notoriously kind of difficult, but I generally varnish my models and I generally use the Citadel Minotaurum varnish, which I find much better than the old Purity Seal. So if you've been warned off Purity Seal, the Minotaurum varnish is a new formulation, and as long as you shake the can for 2 minutes, and I mean actually look at a clock and watch it tick down 2 minutes, which feels like far longer than you might think it would be when you're just shaking something. But as long as you do that, you should get a good coat with the Minotaurum varnish. Thing I will say for Colourforge though is their black undercoat is exceptional. It is so matte. Like you spray it on and it really did boggle my mind as to how matte the undercoat was. It is absolutely lovely to use as a black undercoat. It is the best black undercoat I've ever used. It is the mattest thing in the universe. And finally, just a quick nod, it's not something I use very often. I do have a couple of cans of Rust-Oleum Crystal Clear that I picked up off Amazon. If you want something to have a high gloss finish, which again, I'll probably do a video on my Tau Kill Team, but there is a really old one on the channel, but the audio quality is awful. They're finished to a high gloss finish, and they've done other things here and there that are finished to a high gloss finish. If you want a high gloss spray on varnish that doesn't yellow over time and looks really good, that's the one for you. And now we move on to glue. Best to say, glue is glue. So I tend to use the Revel Contactor, which I guess is the glue that tends to be sold wherever they sell Airfix planes, right? It's plastic glue. It comes in the nice pot with the needle adapter. Games Workshop later on made their own nice pot with the needle adapter with probably the same glue in. It's less glue from Games Workshop for slightly more money. So having started hunting down and buying the Revel Contactor because it was better than the glue Games Workshop were originally making, when they changed to make a product that emulated all the best qualities of Revel Contactor, to my money they're basically identical, so I'll continue to buy the one way. It's a better value proposition. On plastic glue, I am meaning to try the Tamiya extra thin poly cement that comes in the little glass bottles that people rave about. I've had some on order for a little while. I think there's a supply chain issue. I don't know if that comes in from Japan, but I'm still waiting for my Tamiya extra thin poly cement to arrive. And for super glue, for the rare occasion that I need to use super glue for something, I like to use Gorilla Glue. I think it's stronger. It's certainly actually quite difficult to find a big pot of super glue in a big plastic pot anymore. Games Workshop years ago, when they still sold metal miniatures, used to sell super glue in a big plastic pot. I absolutely loathe the little foil toothpaste tube like things of super glue. I absolutely loathe gel formulation of super glue. I absolutely loathe those little Loctite bottles of super glue where you think you've got a bottle. What you've actually got is just one of those little toothpaste tubes of glue in a big plastic applicator with squeezy sides. So whether or not Gorilla Glue is actually better, I think it is, but that could just be the branding working on me. But it comes in that format of being a big pot of super glue that I enjoy and I find really easy to use. Also, Gorilla Glue is one of the few sort of big pot super glues that I've had which doesn't, whatever it is about it, generally I get to use all the Gorilla Glue and throw away the empty pot, whereas generally with super glue you use about a third of it and then it sort of decides to set and then you throw it away and buy more glue. So that's a positive as well. And paints, and again, mostly at Citadel. There are just a few paints that I use, but almost the main reason for making the video is that these few paints that I use because they are notably better than Citadel paints, right? So the first one is Vallejo Model Air Chrome. It's designed to go through an airbrush. I paint it on with a regular brush. I don't own an airbrush because I live in a flat and there's so much hobby equipment in my flat and so many miniatures and so many glass cabinets full of miniatures. There just isn't a space for an airbrush. There isn't a space for the tank. There isn't a space for the ventilation. There isn't a space for any of it. But I brush on metallic Model Air Chrome anywhere where you would use your final silver highlights. So anywhere where you would use Runefang Steel, I think, is the Citadel paint, or Stormhost Steel. I think they're the same colour and slightly different formulation, but this is a replacement for those. It's that brightest silver, that final point highlight for the tip of your sword, and it's just got such a perfect consistency, right? And then carrying on the theme with metallics, I use the Monument Hobbies Pro Acryl Bright Gold and Rich Gold in preference to Retributor Armor and Liberator Gold. And again, because the Pro Acryl Gold's actually, an even liquid with pigment evenly suspended in the liquid, a joy to use, whereas as you know if you've used them, Games Workshop metallics often just get lumpy and porridgey and just require a lot of shaking and thinning and shaking and thinning, and then go too thin and then the pigment collapses everywhere, and it's just such a joy to use these metallic paints. And the only other one that I really use is the Pro Acryl, the Bold Titanium White, which is just such a smooth, vibrant, bright, standard white paint. It's white paint without any of the hassle of having to thin your white paint, because that's another colour from Games Workshop that just tends to go a bit chalky and chunky if you want that brightest white paint. And that's really it in terms. Everything else is Citadel, apart from the sort of 4 that you see. The only other exception is I've got some Army Painter stuff. If I'm using an Army Painter spray, I'll tend to buy the Army Painter colour match paint for that spray, so that when I'm painting the model, if there's the bits I actually want it to be that colour, if I make a mistake, I've got the colour match to go over, and they're fine. They're just there to support the fact that I want to spray something purple or blue or whatever it is. And then finally, tools and things. I don't have any really strong recommendations for files and tweezers and sculpting tools. I found pictures that kind of look like the ones I use. I got them off Amazon. I'm pretty sure they're all made in China somewhere. I mean, they're fine. I don't do a lot of green stuff sculpting, right? I'm not someone that sits and sculpts miniatures. I think that what most I've ever sculpted is maybe some hair or things like that. Mostly I use them. They're good for poking things into things, poking joints together. Tweezers are handy, the sort of reverse action tweezers where you squeeze to open them and then they close under their own tension. And some files, they file stuff. I don't really know how you can mess up a file. It's a rough piece of metal that you know what a file does, yeah. And then wet palette. I really like my Redgrass Games wet palette. You can make a perfectly good wet palette, by the way, out of a sandwich box and some tissue paper, and then you cut a little bit of palette paper from an art shop and you put it on top. But I just really like the Redgrass Games palette. It comes with its nice pre-cut piece of palette paper and its reusable wet sponge, and it's in a little box and the box closes, and it's even got the little clip-on sort of regular dimply palette for mixing up washes and contrasts and things with a bit of medium. I've actually ordered and paid up for ages ago the version 2 of the Redgrass Games wet palette, right? And it's that they did a Kickstarter. I late backed it, and that should be showing up before the end of the calendar year. So maybe, depending on how popular this is, because I know it's not Kill Team content, but maybe when that shows up, I'll do a quick little video saying, oh look, this is the Redgrass Games wet palette version 2. But certainly the version 1 that I use, I enjoy it. I use it every time I paint. Wet palettes, if you've not ever used a wet palette to paint, if you're still using Games Workshop palette paper or a piece of tile, you owe it to yourself to stop and to investigate the idea of wet palettes. This is not going to be a wet palette video, but basically it keeps your paint wet while you're painting, so you don't have to continually go back to the pot to get more paint. So it means that you can do more painting in the same time frame. Just makes the experience nicer. It's really hard for me to describe it. Just go and there's loads of videos on the internet that will evangelize wet palettes to you. Go and have a go to Poundland, buy a little lunchbox, make one up, try it, and then maybe invest in a bespoke, there's that word again, a bespoke wet palette, right? Okay, so final thoughts. This video is different to everything else I uploaded this week. It's not really about Kill Team. I wanted to make it because I want to do some showcases of my painted Kill Teams, and I don't want to have to stop in the middle of those all the time to explain what it is that I use to paint something and how come I'm not using a Citadel paint and what's going on. So I wanted to have that common lexicon so that when I talk on my hobby projects, I can just go and don't forget I've got my hobby projects rundown video there, and you can go and look at that. Element Games is a big shop in the UK, and this is not, I'm not going to go on about it every single time I record a video. I have got a link which if you click I will get like 10p if you spend like £100 or something like that, right? And it doesn't cost you any more. I've put that in the description. I won't mention it in future videos. It'll be in the description for every video from now on. But the reason it's there, and the reason I thought to do it in this video, is two of the products that I've actually mentioned. And this is only for people in the UK, by the way. So if you're watching from America, you can just kind of zone out for a bit. But two of the products I mentioned, so the adhesives brushes. That company, as far as I can tell, is the same company as Element Games. If you go to Company's House and look them up, they're based in the same office, and Element Games Limited has a controlling stake in Artis Opus Limited, and that's all public information on the Company's House website. So that's why they always seem to have all the Artis Opus stuff in stock, right? Because that's where it comes into. And the other one is the Monument Hobbies stuff. Monument Hobbies is an American company, and I really like the Monument Hobbies paint. If it wasn't for the fact that it was a much smaller line of paint than the Citadel paint, or if I lived over in the States and get it more easily, then maybe I would invest in more Monument Hobbies stuff. But Element Games are the sort of official sole, as far as I can tell, importer of the Monument Hobbies stuff into the UK. So if you're in the UK and you're looking for Monument Hobbies, then you need to go to Element Games, because they're the ones with the distribution license for that product. So if you're looking to buy Artis Opus brushes or Monument Hobbies stuff, consider using my link down there in the description, so that maybe in 2037, once enough people have bought something, I can get a Freddo. I don't know. Future videos, obviously I've kind of relaunched for the third time the channel, the third and most successful time I've relaunched the channel this week, and I've tried to put a video out every single day. I don't know if I'm going to be able to keep that up all week, so as I mentioned in a previous video, I'm a teacher and I've got a parents' evening tomorrow, something that happens, so by the time that finishes, I'd be quite late and I might just want to have some pizza and go to bed, I don't know, but I have got the battle report coming on Friday or Saturday, depending on how long the actual game of Kill Team takes. And then who knows? I kind of want to do a video about the channel and where it's going in the future. Obviously, once I get the novitiates painted, which I'm off to do next, as I finish this video, I will show you those. I'll show some of my older Kill Teams. I'm going to do a review of the Chalnath terrain and the Octarius terrain just as soon as I've built and painted that. And yeah, so there's loads of stuff in the pipeline. Not too sure which one's going to be next, but I hope you're enjoying it. And if you are, please leave me a comment. I'd be especially interested to know if there are anything that I've missed in your opinion, any like little crutch paints from certain manufacturers, like if you happen to know, or this manufacturer makes the best orange paint, if you're ever in need of an orange paint, this is your one, or I really like the glue from this manufacturer, or anything like that. I'd really love to know, just because it can enhance my own hobby, right? And if you like the video, and if you want more videos, subscribe to the video and all that sort of stuff. I hope you have a really good rest of your day, and I will see you next time, which will hopefully be tomorrow, but maybe not. Cheerio, bye.